When I was 16 years old, I moved to a new high school with my best friend. I didn't bother to make new friends. I had Dakota, my best friend, by my side, and nothing else mattered. Everything was normal for the first 2 weeks, until one day I was on my way to class, when suddenly someone bumped into me and my cup of coffee spilled all over my clothes. Ew. Then I heard someone saying, "I'm really sorry, are you okay?" I looked up to see, and it was a handsome guy with football clothes. He apologized and cleaned the spilled coffee with his towel. He was staring straight into my eyes with his gorgeous blue eyes. My face turned red. He handed me the towel and said, "I'm sorry again. I have to hurry to the football game." Dakota came running to me. She saw everything and said, "Did you just bump into Noah, the hottest guy in school?" Oh my God. I didn't know who he was, but he was definitely hot. Then Dakota said, "Did you see how he was staring at you? And he gave you his towel, too." Then she said to me that clearly he was so into me. She just felt it. I took his towel with me and sniffed it. It smelled like coffee and sweat, mixed with a little bit of his perfume. I couldn't stop thinking about him staring at me. I went home after school and hugged his towel. I knew that I had to return it. That's why that night I slept cuddling it. The next morning, I washed it and took it with me and went to school. After my first class, I went to the football team's room and asked the coach if Noah was there. He told me that he's in the shower room. I went there and waited for him to come out. All of the other team members came out except for him. Maybe he forgot to bring a new towel and he got stuck in there. So I decided to go inside and give it to him. I went inside and heard someone singing in the shower. I immediately recognized the voice. It was Noah's. I went inside and saw him showering while singing. I met a girl. She made me smile. She made me wait. My heart stopped. He was singing about me. I knew it. I stared at him and couldn't move. When he finished showering, he opened his eyes and I could tell that he was surprised to see me. He said nervously, "What are you doing here and who are you?" Oh, he was playing hard to get. I told him, "Here's your towel. It's clean now." He grabbed it and said, "Okay, thanks, I guess you can get out of the boys' shower now." I saw him blushing. I knew that he liked that I saw him with no clothes on. After that, whenever he saw me, he smiled and waved. I followed him on all his social media accounts. On his Instagram story, he kept posting romantic songs. I knew that it was his way of flirting with me. Dakota knew very well that I had a huge crush on Noah, and he had a crush on me, too. One day after my math class, I was walking in the hallway and saw him. I decided to follow him. He entered the boys' bathroom, and when I passed by it, a hand grabbed me inside the bathroom. It was Noah's. He pushed me against the wall and said, "We're gonna have so much fun together." He wanted to kiss me, but I refused. I pushed him back. I wanted our first kiss to be somewhere romantic, not in the boys' bathroom. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice saying, "Stop what you're doing." It was Dakota. She pushed Noah aside and grabbed me by the hand and dragged me outside. What's her problem? I didn't like what he did either, but she didn't have to push him. Dakota turned to me with an angry face and yelled, "What were you thinking going inside the boys' bathroom?" I explained to her that it was Noah's fault. He was the one who dragged me in. Later that day, I was called into the principal's office. Noah was sitting there with a furious face, and there was another guy sitting next to him. The principal asked me what I was doing in the bathroom. She said that the guy sitting there told her he had heard some noises while he was inside. And when he came out, he saw 2 girls leaving and Noah standing there fixing his clothes. He knew that something wrong had happened. Noah said he didn't do anything. But the principal stopped him and said she wanted to hear me first. Well, I didn't want to tell her that I was dragged in by my crush, but I couldn't lie to her either. I told her that he grabbed me to kiss me, but I refused. Noah's face looked like he was about to explode. He wanted to yell at me, but the principal told him he wasn't allowed to talk. He got suspended for 3 days. I felt bad for him. The guy I like was suspended because of me. I had to make it right. I went to his Instagram account and saw that he posted a picture that says, "She just broke my heart. I felt terrible for what I did." Those 3 days went so slow. I waited until Noah's return so I can apologize to him face to face. After 3 days, I expected to see Noah at school, but I didn't. After my PE class, I asked to leave earlier so I could shower before everyone else. As I was entering the bathroom, I bumped into someone. It was Noah. He looked shocked. I was shocked too. What was he doing there? He looked at me for a few seconds and stormed out. I walked inside and noticed that on the floor was a small note. I picked it up and opened it, and I was shocked by what was written on it. "I'm so sorry. I love you. Let's just forgive each other and be happy together." And I saw the letter N written on the side. I couldn't believe it. Was he stalking me? Did he just risk everything to apologize in the girls' bathroom? I went to Dakota to tell her what happened. I explained to her how Noah was waiting for me in the bathroom to apologize. But I got an unexpected reaction from her. She said, "Leave the guy alone and stop harassing him." I yelled back, "He's the one who's stalking me, you moron." She left angry. I couldn't believe that she was the same person I used to call my friend. I knew she was jealous since one of the hottest guys at school was after me. I was upset that I lost my best friend, and it was all because of Noah. So I decided to ignore him. Whenever I saw him, I turned my face in the opposite direction. A week passed by and I ignored him completely. One day, as I was walking to my window to close the curtains, I saw someone standing there in front of my house's gate. To my shock, it was none other than Noah. He was standing there holding his phone. How did he know where I lived? Or was it only a coincidence? As I was staring at him, I caught him staring back at me. My heart dropped. I backed from the window, sat on the bed for a few minutes, and came back to the window. Noah was gone. Why was he stalking me? Or did he know that I like him back, so he decided to stalk me? To my horror, the same thing happened for 2 days in a row. I decided to go to the police station and report him. I went there and explained everything. They told me that they can't do anything without evidence. So I decided to collect the needed evidence to prove it. I had to watch his every move and document it. So I started taking pictures of him at school and kept an eye on him. After 1 week of collecting evidence to prove Noah's guilt, the police came to my school. Finally, they came to get him. I admit I liked Noah, but I didn't like being stalked by anyone. 2 police officers approached me, and I was ready to show them the evidence when they said, "Young lady, you have to come with us. You're under arrest." What? They want to arrest me? They got the wrong person. I tried to explain, but they said they'll hear everything at the police station. When we arrived there, I saw Noah with Dakota and my parents. What on earth is going on? One of the police officers said, "We got a complaint that you've been stalking this guy for a while, and there's a witness." Dakota stood up and said that I'm a delusional person, and that I've been stalking Noah since the day he bumped into me. She said that I went into the boys' bathroom and forced myself on him, and she dragged me out at the last minute. And I went to the boys' shower and stood there staring at him. The boys who were there saw it. Also, Noah and his friends noticed that I followed him everywhere and informed the principal. Dakota said she'd warned me many times, but I ignored her. No, that can't be true. She's lying. Then I said, what about the romantic Instagram posts? And about Noah sneaking into the girls' bathroom and that little note? Then Noah looked nervous and said, "It was meant for someone else, I admit. I sneaked into the bathrooms, but the note was meant for Dakota. I like her." What? He has a crush on Dakota? My world shattered in seconds. Am I hallucinating? I looked at Dakota and she looked shocked and unaware of Noah's feelings. "But what about you sneaking around my home every day?" He said that one of his friends lived in the same neighborhood and he didn't know that I lived there. I couldn't believe what I heard. Everyone was lying. Then one of the officers took my phone and I could see his expression change. He then said, "You have a whole albums with thousands of pictures of this guy. How would you like to explain this?" I looked at him confused and said, "What do you mean? A police officer asked me to bring evidence when I came by a few weeks ago." He looked confused and took my parents aside and talked to them. After that, I went home to my parents and they told me that I will go with them to see a psychologist the next day. I didn't want to argue, so I went. There, the psychologist told me that I had a condition called erotomania. I've been imagining all of that. I was obsessed with Noah to the point that everything that he said and did, I thought it was related to me. And he didn't stalk me at all. I was the stalker. She told me that everything that happened to me happened only in my head and nothing was real. My friend tried warning me, but I didn't listen to her. And that's why she spoke to my parents about it. I didn't want to accept anything that this strange woman said. She also told me that we will have more meetings in the future. I didn't believe anything she said, but at least I won't have any stalkers anytime soon.
Hi, my name is Robin. But I'm not only Robin. I have DID. You may be wondering what that is. Well, it just means I have multiple personalities, or as some may call it, dissociative identity disorder. I began to understand my different personalities only when I turned 16. There are many things I'm still afraid to talk about, horrible things that happened to me, which resulted in me developing this disorder. Just before I let you in on my life, I'll explain how this whole thing fits together. But keep in mind that without the help I had from a psychologist to understand what happened to me, I could never tell this story. It all started one hot day during the summer. My mom never really let me go out much, and that day she had finally agreed to let me spend the weekend at my best friend Martha's place. We were so excited that we actually made a schedule for how we were going to spend our time together. I packed my bags, and Mom dropped me off at Martha's. I was so happy that I was going, but kind of nervous, too. It was the first time I'd been to her place. I didn't know if it was because of the anxiety I was feeling, but after unpacking my stuff, crazy things started happening. I suddenly didn't remember where I was or how I got to Martha's. I couldn't understand why the clothes in the cupboard were mostly fitted crop tops and tight pants. I was never comfortable wearing those kind of things. I had a bit of a panic attack when Martha ran into the room all excited, carrying a tray of cookies. I didn't even want cookies. In my head, I had this thought that I wasn't allowed to have cookies because they were bad for my teeth. I knew I was only 8 years old. So what was I doing out of the house in Martha's bedroom with her drooling over how great the chocolate cookies were? I think she noticed I was startled. She didn't ask me any questions. She just dropped the cookies and said she'd be back when I was settled in. I sat on the bed and fiddled with the card games whilst thinking about being back in my own bed. I just wanted my mom. Evening came, and I was curled up on top of the sheets, keeping to myself. I hadn't touched the cookies or taken a shower. "You need to eat and take a shower. What's wrong with you?" Martha asked in a tone I was unsure of. And like lightning, I jumped off the bed. How hungry I was. In no time at all, I'd finished the cookies and was back to chatting with her, as if nothing awkward had just happened. Before we'd started chatting, she asked, "Are you okay being here? Because earlier you put me off with that weird attitude. It's unfair how you treated me. You're acting like two different people." I stared at her, lost for words and more confused than ever. I barely had anything to say, mostly because I couldn't remember having a weird attitude. I only kept to myself for a few hours because I wasn't feeling very well. Our conversation didn't end well, but I let it go. While I didn't fully grasp what was happening at first, I knew something was wrong. I often forgot about stuff and felt out of place, and that was just the beginning of many awkward situations. I eventually got through the weekend. The random and frequent blackouts and amnesia worried me. I started to keep to myself because what was happening to me didn't seem logical. For a long time, I didn't want anyone to know that I was having psychological issues. They'd think I'm crazy, I kept telling myself. And that's when my problem started escalating. A few months after that, I kept struggling with having blackouts and multiple switches within myself. One day, I fell off the staircase. This incident was overly suspicious because I had just talked with my dad about how enthusiastic I was about a new offer I had just gotten, only to fall with a thud about 2 minutes later. I was rushed to the hospital immediately, and that was when my mother started to pay a lot more attention to me. Of course, I tried hard to keep my disorder away from my family, especially my mom, due to our past differences. But I couldn't stop the conversation from happening. After that incident, my mom confronted me and asked if I wanted to talk about anything. She told me everything she had observed over time, and she tried to convince me to confide in her. I gave in to her request to visit a therapist only because I was fed up with her going on about it. It seemed like the easiest way to put it behind us, but I was wrong. It became a long journey of jumping from one clinic to another. I had seen different doctors who told me a lot about my disorder and advised me to find a balance and draw up a timeline for each personality. They advised me to talk to my alter egos to find some sort of common ground so I could stop the blackouts and become more aware of situations I got myself into. During one of my therapy sessions, the doctor questioned me about experiences I was afraid of. I talked about the situation between me and my mother. This grueling exercise triggered Scar. She came out to protect me from the traumatic experience. Eventually, we started to make progress with me discovering myself. I had 3 personalities in addition to Robin. Ellie is the first persona I figured out. She is 8. She gets sad when she doesn't get what she wants. She loves to watch Rick and Morty. She is afraid of the dark and is only comfortable when she's around other children like her. Ellie, Scar, and Stacy. Stacy always came out when I was planning to hang out with friends or party or just have a good time. She was the life of the party, the one person I could trust with my social life. Stacy loved to sing, and she wowed the crowd every single time. On Thursday, we went to karaoke and picked Ed Sheeran's Kiss Me as the song to open the night. I picked up the mic and said hello to everyone. Hey guys, I'm gonna open with my favorite song, Kiss Me. I noticed this cute guy across the room. I'm not sure he paid much attention to me until I hit the first note. To be honest, I found it hard to not let him distract me. He walked up to me afterwards, and we talked over a drink. His name was Tom, and he became my boyfriend. He made me so happy. He was cool and easy to vibe with, which was a bit new for me. I had closed myself up to people because it was too stressful to keep convincing everyone who got close to me that I wasn't crazy. Tom and I had a few more dates, and then on one of our outings, Scar kept fighting with me to take over. Scar was the opposite of Stacy. She always kept to herself and loved to listen to sad songs, mostly melancholic ones. She gave off the impression that she was a loner, someone who loved the darker aspects of life, and who often became so engulfed in herself that she'd forget other people even existed. I discovered Scar after I had a falling out with Martha. It really hurt me when that happened, and Scar helped me get through it. She hadn't come out in a while, and I wasn't ready for Tom to misunderstand me. I gave in after a little struggle. Tom and I were talking about our feelings for each other when I suddenly became really cold towards him. I vaguely remember him asking if everything was okay. "It's okay if this conversation makes you feel awkward. We could reschedule. There's really no pressure," he said. To be honest, I had no idea what was happening. Scar had blocked me out. After the date, Tom and I didn't talk much. I was afraid stuff between us had been ruined, and I still needed to get a grip on handling myself if I was to put another person's feelings into consideration. Days and weeks passed without Tom hearing from me. He tried to reach me on social media and at school, but I kept my distance. Until one day, when he showed up at my door, I heard the doorbell ring, and there he was, standing there, staring at me, with questions he needed answers to. "Hi, Tom. What a surprise. I wasn't expecting you," I feigned. "Yeah, can I come in?" he said. I offered him a drink, and he declined. I guess he was more interested in finding out my reasons for ghosting him. I sat across from him at tea and listened to him as he said everything that was on his mind. "Why are you pushing me away? Why do you ignore my messages? Why are you hurting me?" So many whys to answer. I kept my cool and explained to him that I was just having some difficulties finding myself, that I was a bit lost. But then I thought to myself, this guy really cares about me. So I thought it'd be wise to just tell him what living with DID felt like. I knew it was finally time to confess. "Tom, I have dissociative identity disorder. I have multiple personalities that switch up at different times. There's Ellie, Scar, and Stacy. Ellie is 8 years old, and right now she wants to come out. It is her time, but I'm overruling, which is going to cause an imbalance in our routine." Tom looked at me and held my hands. He said this was no reason to have blanked him out, and that it wasn't going to scare him away. I think I cried a little bit. Eventually, Tom and I became a couple. I've been really strict about following the time frames allocated to Scar, Ellie, and Stacy, and I'm still struggling to keep up with one personality. I get afraid that people will call me a creep or leave me because they might find me exhausting, but I'm just doing my best to manage it and to keep seeing my therapist.